red light stops going.
Yeah.
Do you mind just pressing this button if the red light stops?
Which button?
See how that's flashing?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind just keep an eye on that. Yeah.
So as long as it's flashing, it's okay?
It's good. Yeah, if it stops, just press that one.
That one there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we good?
Whenever you're ready.
Are we good? Everyone's good? Everyone's got some cardboards in here? All right, good. Hi, I'm Mark Pesce. I have to say this is currently my fantasy coming true because 23 years ago this is what we tried to do, but as Rob pointed out, it was a little early on the curve. So now we have VR on the web, so let's take a look at what that actually means. Okay, so web VR is a set, when you get right down to it, it's just a set of JavaScript APIs baked in the browser APIs that basically allow you to ask the environment whether there's a VR display attached. What are the qualities of that display? How do I know that display is attached? And then, when you get down to the nitty-gritty of actually drawing pictures in WebGL, where is that display that I can actually render to it? Until last night, I would have said, you kind of never need to worry about this, but there was this beautiful blog post from Mozilla yesterday that actually went into detail about why you would care, because if you're moving from world to world inside VR without actually going into 2D, you actually need to be able to go, oh, am I currently in a display? If I'm currently in a display, then I will transition between worlds, or if I'm actually on screen, then I do things differently. So some of it's actually going to be important to the casual programmer. It will probably be hidden behind nice tools, but you do need to want to think about that a little bit. Where is it now? So there's a special build of Chromium, there's Firefox Nightly, there's Chrome Dev on Android. Now that is going to become Chrome Mainline probably next week when the Pixel Daydream VR ships. So that's just going to be generic on Android. It's going to come to Chrome and Firefox Mainline. What is it? January is what they're saying, right? And Edge, well, no one really knows, but everyone thinks it's going to be around the middle of 2017. Given that Creator Edition is coming out in March, I would suspect that this will be part of Windows Creator Edition that will come out in March as part of their larger drive toward VR. Supported devices, the Rift, the Vive, the Gear VR, horribly, if all of you had to go with it earlier, horribly, Google Cardboard, and Daydream VR. So that's pretty much everything that's out there right now. All right, so the technology stack for WebVR is pretty straightforward. At the bottom level, talking directly to the browser. So technologies that are literally baked into the browser are WebVR and WebGL. Now here's the thing. Not all browsers in the universe have WebVR in them. In fact, only a few of the browsers that are in common release. The beautiful thing about that is it doesn't matter because they've created something called the WebVR polyfill. So if you have a device, for instance, iOS does not have WebVR implemented in it. It isn't going to get it until at least iOS 11 at this point, right? But you want to be able to do WebVR on it. You include the WebVR polyfill. It creates the API on a device that doesn't have WebVR. All right. On top of that, right now, everything uses 3JS. All of the other frameworks all tie into 3JS. 3JS is an amazing, reasonably easy to learn JavaScript framework for 3D if you know JavaScript. And then on top of that, you have the high-level frameworks, A-Frame, React VR, which hasn't actually been released yet right now, so it's just sort of hypothetical right now, but that's Facebook. And then Glam, which is what Tony Parisi was working on before everything happened. So this is the high level, and this is where we're going to be focusing tonight. And then, of course, there's the application that you're going to build on top of that. So that's all very straightforward. Now, the gotchas. And I'm about to get into a bit of religious war here. When you create WebVR, it's advisable that you deliver it via secure web, HTTPS. Now, there's quite a flame war going on in the WebVR community right now. I'm on the side that thinks security is a good thing and authentication and identity is a good thing because you're handing someone your eyes and your ears, and you actually want to be quite secure about that. So the browsers, it may not go into the spec that it's required, but the browsers will probably flag it and make it an annoying experience for the user if the user goes to a non-secure site and enters WebVR.
Can I just throw into that? Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, it's quite
so
all right.
I mean, TLS is required for HTTP2, even though it's not in the spec. So I essentially think anybody who's resisting going to TLS.
But when will we actually go to HTTP2 though? I guess in a practical sense.
It's supported in almost every browser and all the major servers now. I think you're kind of mad not to.
Okay.
When you're doing it. So all this is a bit of a. I mean, I think it's
a bit of a
lot
perfect.
easier now than it was, you know, even 6-12 months ago.
Well, when this,
I think it's less of an impediment that a lot of people probably feel.
well, and Let's Encrypt took care of sort of the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But that assumes you're online and not on a private network and all that.
Yeah, no, it does. And one thing that I've certainly talked to the browser folks about is that if you're in dev mode, so you're on the private network, you'll be able to set a flag, and it won't
And
complain.
that's how other APIs that use TLS work on local networks and local machines. They don't require TLS, like I say, local hosts.
There you go. All right. Cores. So was it common object? What is it? Resource.
Cross-origin.
Thanks. Cross-origin resource. Blah 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 blah. WebGL implementations complain if you grab things from multiple machines. So if you have texture maps that are sitting on another machine from where your JavaScript is being delivered, it won't like that. It will not play that unless you have cores set up. So that's just a very simple gotcha that people run into a lot of times. Right now, if you're using a framework, always use the latest version of the framework. There's a new version of 3JS that gets released every couple of weeks. A new version of A-Frame is released almost every week right now. So you just want to make sure you're using the latest and greatest. And for A-Frame, which is what I'll be showing you, you want to use Firefox Nightly because it's a Firefox tool being developed by Firefox engineers, and so you probably want to be using the browser that they're using, which is Firefox. And interestingly, there's been a bit of a role reversal on the PC because I have a full Vive system. I had been using Chromium. There's a special build of Chromium that had been designed to work with WebVR and the Vive, and it was all really nice. And within the last month, Firefox Nightly is now better than Chromium. The reason for that is because all the energy at Google is now going into getting the Android branch fully developed for Daydream. So they'll all be fine soon, but right now, Firefox, and hey, Firefox will run on your Mac, and that Chromium build will only run on your PC, so you've got a full service solution. Okay. Now, what is A-Frame? Okay, it's a Mozilla-led project that basically wants to lower the bar on WebVR authoring, make it as easy as HTML. It uses tags, so it looks just like HTML5. Those tags are fully accessible to the DOM. This is the magic bit that makes it really wonderful if you happen to do DOM programming. And it's fully extensible. You can add any of your own tags. So if there's something that A-Frame doesn't do and you want to get in down and dirty, you can add it. And there's a growing body. There's a repository of people who are now adding tags. So it is an open source community of people who are creating new tags all of the time. So A-Frame is not just being created, it is growing because there's an active group of people who are growing it. Are you adding mixed reality tags into it now?
No.
But you could
Looking
if you
for
wanted
it.
to. All right, and the URL is aframe.io. All right, now you're all going to experience in eye-bleeding glory my HTML skills, which have not progressed significantly since 1993, because you're going to take your phones and you're going to go visit the website learningaframe.com, because we have a series of examples here that we're going to walk through, and the code will be up here, and you'll be able to sort of pop your head in and see what's going on there. So Learning A-Frame. Which will actually end up redirecting, but don't worry about that. All right, and you get
Is that one word?
Learning A-Frame is one word. You'll get that. Learning A-Frame. No dashes, just learningaframe.com. And this is what the page will look like, so that's how you'll know it's loaded correctly. Okay? Now, example number one, to show you how easy it is. Earlier this evening, I took an immersive photo of this room with all of you in it. And I built a world to show you how this works. All right? This is the entire A-frame file. Now, if you tap on one on your screen here, it'll load that. All right. You'll see there's a little cardboard icon there. When it gets fully loaded, you tap on the cardboard icon and you pop it into your cardboard. Oh, no, there's the run. All right. Let's go through the magic that makes that work. There's normal HTML header, and there's a script to include A-frame. That just happens to be pointing to the current A-frame repository. All right. And then inside the body tag, you have an A-scene tag. This means, hey, we're starting to do A-frame here. So all of the A-frame is inside of the A-scene tags. And there's only one tag inside of that, which is the A-sky tag, which has a source that points to the immersive photo that I snapped. That's all you need to do. So basically, it's just 4 lines beyond the normal body, and actually 3 lines because I made a comment. All right. Is it? I do a lot of HTML commenting. Is that bizarre? Do people not do that, or do people actually do that? Okay. All right. So basically, it's 3 lines. It's the A scene open, the A sky with closing the A sky, and that's it, right? So if you have a 360 camera, or if you have any program that can take 360 photos, and there's a number of them out there now, like the Google Photosphere and blah, 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 you can now share that on the web with all of your friends, and they can have a Google Cardboard in 4 lines of code. And you all have the code because you all have the link to that. All right. Are there any questions about that first example? All right. Second example is a bit more of a gotcha, which has to do with video. All right. Do not load this. The reason you're not going to load this because it doesn't seem to work on mobile is because WebGL mobile implementations generally don't include video. All right, particularly on iOS, but it didn't seem to work on the Samsung either. I tried it on both. You can try it, see if the video will come up. I don't think it's a codec problem, but I think WebGL specifically on mobile devices has trouble with video.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Well, then is it a codec problem?
No, actually, the thing is, some of the browsers implement security feature. So
Oh,
because of that one,
yeah,
you
yeah.
need to tap on that. So you have to
Heavy user thing.
add some event to play the video. It's just a HTML5 video in the base.
And only on mobile, really.
Okay, all right. So theoretically this will work. I'd have to add some sort of user eventing on it. But this is exactly the same code. The only thing I did was instead of saying source of a JPEG file, it's source of an MPEG file. That's all I had to do. So you can shoot as much MPEG-4 video as you want and create an immersive viewer for it, again on the web, in 4 lines of A-frame. Is that clear with everyone? All right? Okay. Next example. Now we're actually going to start to do stuff. Okay. So this is the simple blue sphere. Pardon me? This is example number 3. Yes, it says at the bottom. Example number 3. So if you go back and you tap on example number 3, and have a look around, and basically what you need to do is you need to look down, sort of off to the side there. You see this sort of weird glowing blue sphere there? You have to sort of look down at it. It's there. It's sort of a blue sphere that's glowing, vaguely, weirdly. All right. I'll explain why it's like that. The first thing we do is we create a sky. So rather than using the JPEG so that we have an image for a sky, we're just going to have a color. And you can use the normal CSS colors in here. I could say color black or color red or whatever. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create an object. Now, A-frame has this idea of elements. All right. And you can take a physical, or I should say a virtual object, and either express it as a set of elements, or you can take these compact forms. A sphere is a compact representation of a set of elements that provide the geometry of a sphere and the material. So the geometry is the actual shape, and the materials are how that shape looks. And when you put them together, you can get something combination like that. And what we're doing is we're saying that the sphere has a color of blue. I could give that a hex code or anything else. I could give it a radius. It's a radius of 1/2 a unit. Now in WebVR, by convention, Units are meters. Sensibly enough. At least they're not feet. So that basically what I'm saying is it's a, when you're looking down at that is a sphere that should have a radius of 1 meter. Pardon me, a radius of half a meter, so a diameter of 1 meter. All right. And it's all happening there. So you get that? Now, why was the sphere glowing weird? Does anyone know? Anyone who's done 3D work understand why that sphere might not look right?
Self-illuminated.
It's not illuminated. There's no light in there. So this is a big thing. So when you start to think about 3D, you have to think about object shapes, the materials that those objects are made out of, and how those objects are lit. These are the 3 elements. So we've covered the shape and the material here inside of the sphere tag. Now what we want to do is we want to add a light source. And so in example number 4, the lit blue sphere, what we do is we add in a light element. Now there are different kinds of lights. You can have a point light, which is kind of like having a light bulb hanging down from the ceiling. You can have a directional light, which is just as it sounds, a directional light. You can have an ambient light, which is just basically the space is being suffused with light. Generally in worlds, you'd have a combination of some low-level ambient lighting, so you can see everything, plus some combination of point or directional lightings. And of course, as you do in the real world, you place your lights. Now, we haven't said anything about that. When you want to place something in the virtual world in a frame, you use the tag element position. And you use the position in X, Y, and Z. Now, what does X, Y, and Z mean in WebVR? So, it's a right-hand rule here, right? Okay, there we go. So, bear with me for a minute. Okay, X goes positive this way, Z goes positive that way, Y goes positive this way. So what we're doing is what we're saying is we're setting the light 5 meters in the air above the center. Okay? So that's how we positioned it right there. Are there any questions about that? So if you load that, you'll now see that the sphere does not look quite so weird. You don't have to use the viewer for it. It's nice. Okay, there we go. And you look down, you actually see, and the thing about that is that we are also between the light source and the sphere. We're not casting a shadow, but the object still looks like it's illuminated quite evenly because we're in the same direction as the light source. So the light source is from behind us. Okay? All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap a texture onto that sphere. One of the great things about A-Frame is that it provides an entire management for assets. Management for assets is built in. And so what you do is, after the scene tag, but before you get to anything interesting, you have an assets tag, and then you can list all of the assets. They can be sounds, they can be images, they can be MP4 files, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're going to be using in the scene, you list. You give them IDs so that you can refer to them by ID inside the other tags. And A-Frame will then go and asynchronously load these things for you in the background for you very nicely. All right, so it'll just handle that. It'll just manage those. So we've loaded a texture map, and then if we want to put that texture map on the sphere, what we do is we say source equals, and then we give it the ID of the tag, so pound earth. At the same time, we've also set the background color of the sphere to white because it makes the texture map look better. Yes?
Does everyone has similar features like prefabs, like in Unity, or not? In terms
Does
of
it have, pardon me?
prefabs, like in Unity, like managing assets, where you can put all that and then just change everything globally instead of doing it one by one?
So I'm
Like prefabs in Unity, you have the features that allows you to put one assets into the same folders, and then you can repeat it, and then you just do one change universally across all your assets.
I think you'd have to do that via probably JavaScript or something like that. I think you could do it, But I think you'd have to bake that in yourself. I don't think it's baked in by itself.
Okay.
All right.
Could you do with the class?
Yeah, it sounds like a CSS class targeting universal layout to everything. Kind of thing.
It's like a.
All right, so if you go to number 5 and take a look at that, you can now see, you're now taking a look at the Earth from above. You can see Greenland and the North Pole, all covered nicely with ice. Well, still kind of nicely covered with ice. And so all we had to do again was import the asset and then attach the asset to the sphere. So that's clear for everyone? All right, next. Now I'm getting sick of having to look down at the sphere, as you might think. All right. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to use the position element, position attribute of that tag. And so we're going to position it now out and up. Right? So it's out a meter and up 1.5 meters. So if you load number 6. There we go. There we go. It's over there. But what you probably notice is that it's still being lit from above, so you can only sort of see the top half of it. It's number 6.
Yeah.
All right. You can see it. It's nice. It's there. It's at eye level now. You're not looking down on it anymore.
Is
But
that like 0.5 meters? Or is that 5 meters, the radius?
No, it's 0.5 meters. So that means you know 1 meter diameter, 1 meter away from you, and raised 1.5 meters. And all right. That's all clear? Okay, so you've probably gone, okay, that's interesting. Now, if we were doing this on a desktop, and we aren't, but if we were doing this on a desktop and we had loaded that last world, it would come up with a black screen. Because as it turns out, the default orientation of the camera, so you have objects, you have lights, and now you are adding a camera to the scene. The default orientation of the camera is not looking at that sphere. So what we need to do is we now need to add a camera element and another attribute of almost every element in A-frame is the rotation element. Now, the rotation element gives you what they call yaw, pitch, and roll. All right? So yaw is rotation around the x-axis. Pitch is rotation around, no. Pitch, yaw, roll. Sorry. There we go. Pitch, yaw, roll. All right? So rotation around the x-axis, rotation around the y-axis, rotation around the z-axis. For some reason, they're using degrees rather than radians. I haven't really figured out why they chose to do that. It's very odd. And so what we're doing is we're saying we're going to take the camera, we're going to turn the camera 270 degrees. So the camera is, since the sphere was over here, what we've done is we've turned the camera all the way around here. And so what should happen is when it comes up, we should be staring directly at the sphere. Now, if you were on the desktop, that would be the case. When you're in a device that has actually got an accelerometer, what do you call it, IMU in it, it actually overrides the default position of the camera. So what you're going to get will look roughly the same as you got last time, but if you run it on the desktop, it looks exactly the same. There. Oh no, actually no, it's in front of me. That's good. There. Okay. Now we get to the fun bits. So there's another set of tags that allow you to animate an object. Now what we're doing is we're going to take the thing that we're animating and we're going to wrap it inside of an entity. Now an entity is a frame. You can think of it as a div tag for objects in the 3D world. That's effectively what it is. For those of you all know what a div tag is, or a span tag, because